Hi, Miroslav. Welcome to Drag and Drop.
Thank you, Feroz.
It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you for agreeing to take the time to speak to me and share what I think will be a very interesting conversation about your journey.
It will be. I'm looking forward to this conversation as well.
Amazing. Before we kind of dive in, it'd be good for those who are not aware of you to kind of, a bit of an introduction to yourself and your background.
Miroslav Samoilenko. I am a director of solution architecture with a company called JELD-WEN. It is a doors and windows manufacturing company based in the United States. My current role is managing a middleware team, custom software, or I'd rather say business process automation using low-code and generative AI.
Yeah.
And I've been in the almost 30 years. This July 4th this year will be my 30th anniversary in IT.
And 30 years, you've worked across, traditional development, enterprise systems, and you mentioned low code, what pushed you to start looking, into a different way to build software?
It happened back in 2017 when I worked for another manufacturing company. And we had a custom-built e-commerce portal, which was built in early 2000, and we wanted to rebuild it. And the management said that if we want to rebuild a custom software and we want to make it significantly better or different, we might want to look into a significantly different platform. And this is where we started the search for low-code. And that was my first exposure to Mendix, because we chose Mendix as the technology to replace that C# based e-commerce website.
And prior to, obviously a lot of people I speak to when they hear the term low code, skeptical, not sure, what did you know of Mendix, and did you already have an opinion before actually evaluating?
I knew nothing. I didn't even know that such thing as low code existed.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about 2017, I don't believe that at that time anybody was talking about low code. There was no Gartner quadrant for low code. And did I use something which then became low code? Yes, I was a big user of Oracle Application Express, which is now on Gartner low code quadrant, right? So I was using it, but it was more like rapid application development tool rather than something which would have its own name, low code. Back in 2017, there was no low code at that time.
And what was your kind of initial reaction when you saw the platform?
It was relatively negative because well, at that time I was 20 years in custom software development, and I spent most of my time in Oracle database building back-end PL/SQL applications. Again, by that time I reached quite an efficiency doing it. And so moving from writing code into creating diagrams, it was not intuitive. And I know we had a lot of discussions with our trainer who kind of taught us how to use Mendix, because some terminology changes, right? For example, when you are in Oracle, when you are in a database world, the word commit has very specific meaning, and the word commit in Mendix has a different meaning, right? So there was like terminology changes at that level, but that was just a transition from one technology to another technology.
Yeah. And, prior to Mendix, and going through this process, what was, as a leader, what were some of the biggest frustrations you were dealing with, which is why this option was looked at?
Oh, there are multiple, right? And well, I do have my theory about what is happening with IT software development, right? When you look at the structure of development team, you have a product owner, you have an architect, you have developers, back and front end developers. You have a DevOps engineer, you have a database administrator, you have an infrastructure engineer, right? And for example, when I was building software inside of an Oracle database, I cannot even start before somebody provisions infrastructure for me, right? So I depend on the infrastructure team, and then I need to have a debate to set up a database for me, right? So there are so many dependencies even before I start becoming productive, and those are the things which I didn't know I could avoid, right? And that was the appeal of Mendix platform. I can outsource a number of project roles to Mendix platform. They become a service back to me, right? Which is if I want to become productive, I just go to the to Mendix portal and say instantiate an application for me, right? And the platform would provision the infrastructure. It will provision the database. It will provision the application server, and make it available to me as a service. That was a major change in my vision how we build software, and it eliminated a lot of frustration which I would have had as a pure SQL developer inside of an Oracle database. Right? All of a sudden, I don't have to do a lot of things. I don't have to talk to other teams to make me productive.
Yeah. And how long, now that you had the platform, how long, if you were skeptical, how long was it till you were fully convinced that this is the way forward?
With the first request to do something yesterday.
Okay.
Right? And I tell you, it didn't take long. Right?
Mm.
So on that project, I learned I was the product owner for APIs, which is I was not strictly speaking inside of Mendix environment, but as I got a request where business said, "Can we have it done quickly?" This is when it was an aha moment. Um, if I am to build it quickly, I'd better doing it in Mendix. Right, and it is not because it can do something magical for me as a software developer. It is because it eliminates a lot of handshakes with other teams, and those handshakes naturally slow the development process. You like it, you don't like it. If you have to talk to another team, you are at the mercy of their availability. So the first task which I had to do yesterday, that was the beginning of kind of Mendix platform for me.
Yeah. And, I think, from 2017, a lot of years, these platforms are focused on the speed element. But did you have any concerns around, enterprise readiness?
Never. Kind of when we saw Mendix back in 2017, it was Mendix 6.
Yeah. Wow.
It was clear that even at that time, the platform was primed for the enterprise. Now, UI elements were not that great. There was no workflow. Tables in the Mendix 6 are horrible. But from technology standpoint, they were ready. And over the time, Mendix took care of the UI components. Right now, I cannot even think of complaining that some of the widgets are not up to what I need to do. Mendix introduced workflow. Mendix added, they include event framework right within the platform. They made it better and better and better. But like I said, even in 2017, it was clear that they are there to stay and that they are ready for the enterprise.
Yeah. And did you have any, obviously, you believed in the platform and you and everything it offered. Was there any, obviously in the United States, it doesn't have much of a presence, but like Europe, right, where Europe is very well known, being a Dutch company, and obviously prior to Siemens, I think a lot of people didn't really know the name Mendix. Was there any kind of worry about that side of things, where okay, we're siding on with a lesser known application?
It heavily depends whom you're talking to. This is a true statement. When I talk to various stakeholders and they kind of ask me, can you spell Mendix for me, please? And yes, that was a concern that in the United States, it's not as known as Microsoft.
Yeah.
However, I found that with the simplicity of the platform, with the variety of training materials available on Mendix platform, I can take a universal untrained junior developer and convert that person into a real force in a matter of a month. And in my career, I did it multiple times. Like my current junior developer who works for me at JELD-WEN, that was an example of a universal untrained person I got her straight from college. And she's now managing all Mendix development in the company.
Wow.
And I'm hands off. She does
Yeah.
all that by herself, right? So it is it may be difficult to hire a ready-to-go Mendix consultant, but it is very easy to produce one.
Yeah. And now you've worked with Mendix, for so many years, been part of many projects. Can you walk me through one application that you feel generally changed how it helped people, on a day-to-day basis?
And so we have JELD-WEN grew through mergers and acquisitions, right? And because of that, we have quite a number of backend applications which transact our business transactions, and because of that, our internal controls team, they do have to uh, validate those transactions that there are no discrepancies. Right, and since we are a public company, we have to present those findings to our external auditors. And when we talk about this process 2 years ago, the statement from our internal control team was, because of the number of people which we have, we can validate that many transactions. Now, we built a Mendix application which does which consolidates data from various data sources, does the 3-4-way matching, identifies where are potential discrepancies. And now the statement from our internal auditors team changed. Now they say we can review that many discrepancies, right? Which is, they moved away from a hit or miss. Like, let's pick, like, for the sake of the argument, we can process 500 transactions. We can reconcile 500 transactions. Maybe there will be discrepancies, maybe there won't. Now, when they reconcile the transactions, they always know that every one which they look at has a problem, or potentially has a problem, because that software found that there are probably discrepancies, right? And which makes the internal control process ridiculously effective, right? Because our internal auditors no longer look at business transactions which were, 3-way, 4-way matched by the software. The software says that there are no discrepancies over there, which means that they're not wasting their time. From technology standpoint, that Mendix application is not the rocket science, right? We ingest large data volumes. Yes, we have millions of transactions which we need to deal with, which is, we need to be very careful with indexing. We need to be very careful how we select data. That application heavily relies on background jobs available in Mendix. So, but like I said, from software development process, there were no surprises, no aha, no weird things which we would have done in Mendix. But from process execution and how we change lives of our internal auditors, it's a night and day.
And with your current organization, were they already using Mendix prior to you coming in? And is that something
No,
that kind of, they
no,
weren't? Okay.
no. When I joined the company, there was no Mendix
Okay.
in JELD-WEN, right? So we effectively started our JELD-WEN journey, 3.5 years ago when I
Okay.
joined the company.
Yeah. And what was, obviously you've been through this process with the previous business of not knowing about this platform, right? And now you're coming in like a champion, right? You're convinced.
Feroz, time changed the knowledge of Mendix platform
Mm,
among executives,
mm.
right? When I now talk to VPs and say I'm planning to use Mendix, before I say this is why, they say, sure, good idea.
Wow. Okay. Amazing.
It does grow in popularity.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe developers don't know about it.
Mm,
Executives do.
yeah.
Right? So my life here at JELD-WEN is way simpler because I do
Yeah, I
not
can
have.
imagine with all the Gartner and Forrester and all these analysts, is also obviously all VPs are following these things and seeing kind of who's leading the way. And obviously Mendex is there. So you'd expect, I think in this day and age, leaders who may not know about it would be a bit surprising.
Well, plus some of the leaders have experience, uh, maybe not kind of working with Mendix, but they
Mm,
came from other large enterprises where Mendix was present,
Yeah.
and they knew the success story.
Yeah. And from a technical perspective, where does, Mendix generally reduce friction? And where do you think teams still need that strong engineering judgment?
One of the things which we built at JELD-WEN, we implemented Gartner reference architecture for
Mm,
composable enterprise. And one of the core elements of that architecture is data integration hub. You can look up that
yeah.
reference architecture from Gartner, right? Which is core to our middleware. That software was built with C#, right? Because I need high throughput, high availability. I do need scalability. I need a lot of things which cloud gives me natively, right? So we built that data integration hub from Gartner architecture using C# as a headless microservice, and then we use Mendix to add the head to it, right? Because
Mm,
developers and kind of people, they're not that good calling APIs from whatever calling APIs, right?
yeah.
So they do need some visualization layer to manage that microservice effectively, right? This is what we did with Mendix. We added a head
Mm,
to a headless microservice. But the microservice itself, because of some high availability, high throughput, scalability, horizontal scalability, because of those requirements, we built it in Procode.
okay. Yeah. And, you touched on, obviously maybe some developers may not be aware. And, in the US, I think there is a developer shortage of experienced developers, right? Versus the rest of, if I
Mhm.
compare to Europe and some other regions, what's been your kind of strategy of growing your team and building your team?
In JELD-WEN, as I mentioned,
Mm,
I rely on universal and trained developers and teach them Mendix. Right, this way they do not bring the luggage of other technologies. And for some short projects, I work with our partners, and
yeah,
surprisingly enough, with the European development centers,
yeah,
and I get Mendix developers from European development centers.
yeah, yeah. And with these developers that you're training, because there's always been this conversation around, with platforms like Mendex, they can pick it up really fast and grow
Mhm.
to a senior really quick, and
Yeah,
and you touched on someone in your team that is doing that, right? And do you believe that's
absolutely.
something that more developers, they have this thing of, okay, if I'm not a coder, I'm not a developer, and it's slowly shifting with everything that's going on. But do you think more developers need to look at this technology?
Interesting that you mentioned it because I had absolutely the same conversation with my junior Mendix developer a year ago
Yeah,
when
yeah,
she joined the company, and she said, "Well, as a Procode developer, I know my growth uh, path. Like I will be junior for 2 or 3 years, and then I
mm,
will become a regular developer, another for 2 or 3 years, and then I
yeah,
will become right. So like in 10 years, I will become senior developer. What can you
yeah,
offer me?" And I said, with low code, with your quality of thinking, because the goal is brilliant. I said your way from junior to senior is about 3 years,
mm,
and she is on that path, right? So
wow,
I must say that adoption of pro-code development, I'm sorry, adoption of low-code development significantly reduces your time from junior to an architect.
I think also, from a developer standpoint, they they're a lot more, compared to the old school developer is just strong on the technical side. These developers are a lot more rounded, right? But they've got the kind of stakeholder side as well.
Uh, I completely agree with you, and there is a reason for it, right? A Manix developer is always full stack developer,
Yeah,
right? That person needs to understand how to design a database. The person needs to understand how to structure your business logic. The person needs to have an understanding how to structure UI, right? While if you talk about Procode developers, I always see the segregation. Like a person
mm,
would say, "I'm a backend developer. Oh, can you do UI? No, I cannot.
mhm,
Or I am a JavaScript developer can build you wonderful UI. What about business logic? You need to have backend developer, right? With Mendix, it's not happening. You are everything, and because of that, you you better understand how your work brings value to the company, because you are bringing that you're linking together your database, your business logic, your UI, and you're talking to business analysts, right? So I would get, for me, I got more satisfaction as a creator when I
Yeah.
started working with low code as opposed when I work with pro code.
And how do you think about governance, reusability, and long-term maintainability in a low-code environment?
I don't have to think about it. Platform gives me everything which I need, which is huge help. That is, if you ask me what is our kind of governance strategy, I would say, let's go to Mendix platform and see what they give me. Because I would
Mm,
100% rely on what comes with the platform, which is
yeah.
a big help for me. Because this is just one more thing which I don't have to think about.
And right now, well, not right now, for a while now, everyone's talking about AI and now agents, and I've seen some of your LinkedIn posts around AI agents as well, right? And I'm interested. Before automation can take action, the foundations need to be right. So, from your experience, what actually makes an organization AI ready?
So only the lazy didn't talk about data oversharing by now, right? And mostly we talk about unstructured data when it comes to oversharing, like what's available on SharePoint, right? And well, look, AI does not create problems. It uh, amplifies the problems which you already have, right? And oversharing, this is just an amplification of what you already have. Like I, as a human, have no idea of the wealth of knowledge which I have access to through SharePoint. Even if I do some uh, keyword search, I still will not get everything which I have access to. And generative AI just amplified that I might have access to more data than I should, right? And this is why there is a lot of consultancy to fix the access control to the knowledge base in enterprises. Now, as we move from uh, chatbots to agentic AI, and kind of in the simplest terms, an AI agent is your chatbot with API attached to it, right? The AI will amplify another problem with which an enterprise might have, and that is your API strategy and security of your APIs. And so, for example, when an agent calls an API which is exposed by my ERP application, what identity would that agent present? Will it have its own identity? And which means that there is a user in ERP which represents the agent, or the agent will, or I as a human will delegate my identity to the agent, and agent calls ERP with my identity. Now, this is the simple situation. What about if you have an agentic framework and you have multiple agents? And some agents have their own identity. Some agents rely on the delegated identity, and you have a mix and match. And before you know, you will end up thinking about what is my API strategy, what is security on my API. I'm sure that we will again we'll start talking about zero trust security, especially when it comes to agentic frameworks. Now, zero trust security, the simple explanation is at any moment of time, you have to have uh, a verifiable identity of the ultimate consumer,
Yeah.
right?
And where do you see, AI or more agent-like patterns realistically helping today? And where is human decision still essential?
Everywhere where you have a pattern, that thing will be replaced by Gen AI, right? And for me, this is a very generic statement, right?
Mm,
Because, for example, uh, I in my team recently deployed an AI agent to automate defect incident triaging because I saw that this is a repetitive task. I saw how my support engineer who's doing triaging doing it, and it was obvious that such things should be done by an agent because it is very pattern based. Right? You just look around you and see whenever you see something which is built on a pattern, or somewhere where you can write a standard operating procedure. That is something which is prime for Gen AI automation.
And where do you think, people need to be, more organizations need to be more cautious?
So where organizations should be cautious about generative AI decision making. Generative AI at the moment cannot make a decision. Right? It is excellent to automate patterns, but when a flow goes off a pattern, you have to have a human in the loop. Unfortunately, and now we're talking about the future. As we use generative AI to automate more and more of enterprise processes, people will start losing grasp of those processes, I think. Right. So from that standpoint, decision making will be more complicated, and I do not quite understand how will enterprises be able to produce such decision makers. But again, this is
Interesting.
the future, right? And
Yeah.
when we plan future, we always plan it pessimistically, and then we'll find a way to solve it.
Yeah, yeah. And with everything going on with agentic AI and Mendix as a platform is evolving, a lot of these platforms are kind of moving more kind of yes, low code, but talking more about AI powered platforms and a lot of features are coming in. What's your view on that? And what are you kind of most excited about where the platform's headed?
Mendix added AI capability into software development process. Uh, I do not have an opinion about it. I do not.
Mm,
When it comes to agentic AI, Mendix was kind of it was positioned as a very good orchestrator for
mm,
agents from day one, even before agents existed. And I am using that capability right now. I heavily rely on Mendix and its workflows, on its microflows to orchestrate uh, Azure OpenAI responses API-based agents, right? So it is not either or, right? Mendix and agentic AI, they live perfectly together.
yeah. And as these systems are becoming more, automated and intelligent, how do you see the role of architects and senior developers evolving now going forward?
They will become product owners. The way I look at the structure of our software development team, the only person who brings value or creates and differentiating value is the product owner, because that is the person with the vision. Then you have an architect or software developer who support the product owner. And then you have a tester or QA engineer, you have DevOps engineer, you have DBA, you have infrastructure who support the developers. With Mendix platform, as I mentioned, I already have infrastructure as infrastructure role as a service, DBA as a service. I have my DevOps as a service. With AI development or kind of generative AI development, and especially when it helps building software, my software engineer and my architect, they will also become a service available through some generative AI agents. So those developers, those architects, they will evolve to become product owners. Where a business would say, IT, I need a software like this. An IT specialist, instead of creating software, it will write specification, feed it to Gen AI, go get some coffee. A couple of hours back, you have your software written.
And I'm interested to know, your views on, right now, vibe coding is very kind of spoken about, right? A
Well,
lot of
I'm,
it.
I'm, I'm, I am using left and right.
Okay. So yeah, what's your view on that?
Um, Everything I look at, I look from enterprise standpoint.
Mm,
Right? I see vibe coding as a good personal productivity tool, but this is not an enterprise solution. Right? So, for example, I was recently asked to help HR with the process, and I found that for that job, Microsoft Access would be the best solution.
mm,
And last time I touched Microsoft Access was in the previous century. So I
yeah,
used vibe coding to help me build that small Microsoft Access application. Right? Very good stuff for
mm,
personal productivity.
yeah,
For the enterprise, I, I probably I don't think this is an enterprise solution
yeah,
or
yeah,
enterprise strategy.
yeah. And as someone who has been in Mendix projects in more than one organization, for leaders at the moment evaluating, looking at Mendix as a platform, what advice would you give to them to set them up for success from day one?
Okay. Um, so it's one word: commit. Right. Once you choose Mendix as your platform to build software, do not have a second guess. Right. Once committed, commit fully, and you will have success with the platform, and you will have success very quickly. But it does require commitment.
Yeah. Do you go to conferences and you meet other kind of leaders? Do you still today sometimes in your conversations come up to have conversations with people who are still quite skeptical and they're not just,
Oh, yeah.
they don't believe that this is something you can consider?
Absolutely. Well, this is the reason why I was talking about a universal untrained developer to become a Mendix developer.
Oh,
Right? If people who spend their entire career writing, for example, in C sharp, it is exceptionally difficult to persuade them that it is time to move from pro-code development to low-code development.
oh,
Right? It's not that difficult with executives because you show the numbers, and numbers tell that
yeah.
building in Mendix is cheaper than building in C sharp or in Java or in Python. But when I talk to developers with hands-on experience, especially developers with a lot of luggage,
Oh,
persuading them to move from whatever pro-code language which they're using and become low-code developers, it is an uphill battle. It's very
oh.
difficult.
Interesting. I think it's something that will continue to go forward, and there'll always
Yeah,
be skeptics, but I think there's enough believers out there.
absolutely.
Amazing. Well, thank you for speaking to me, Miroslav. It was great to speak to you and hear kind of, I think it's nice to hear from someone who's kind of adopted it quite a long time ago in the United States, and you still believe in the platform and what it's doing, and a real advocate for it. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you, Feroz. It was a very good discussion with you. Thank you
And hopefully,
for
maybe we can, as AI is evolving and changing daily, maybe we could have another conversation again in the future.
absolutely we will.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Feroz.